All right, Ben and Bella, this is what we did last Friday. We continue our notes, and we're talking about, we got to just define some things here. Fibrillation is an uncoordinated heartbeat. Your heart is beating in an uncoordinated way. How do you fix fibrillation? Yep, we saw it in our class last class when I showed you the video. You fix it with the defibrillator. So that's what we wrote down. It's an uncoordinated heartbeat, and then you fix with a defibrillator. Got it. A heart murmur is an abnormal heart sound. There's some weird sound to your heart, and they're going to say, what you got is a heart murmur. What we talked about in class is one thing that could cause a heart murmur is we got our heart, and the inside layer of your heart is called the endocardium. And what we wrote down in our notes is that it's really, really smooth. And the reason why it's really smooth, so as the blood goes through the heart, it just slides right through a heart. Sometimes what causes a heart murmur is you get a little tear in your endocardium. And then as the blood goes by that tear, it starts to swirl a little bit. And as it swirls, it'll keep on swirling through your arteries. So you go to a physical and they listen at the blood going through your arteries. It should sound like this. It should sound like a river as the blood's going through your arteries. But if it's swirling, it sounds like this. And they write on your chart, got a heart murmur here. Most of the time, what happens is this little tear in the endocardium heals on its own, and then your heart murmur goes away. Sometimes that tear gets even worse, and then that would be more pronounced. All right. Next, blood pressure. We've been taking our blood pressure for 4 days. Finally, we can talk about it. Normal blood pressure numbers are when the top number is between 110 and 140. The bottom number, somewhere between 70 and 90. Now, I don't like the word normal because blood pressure could change. You could use a different blood pressure based on your size. You know, blood pressure, I don't know if I quite understand that. Let's think about it as water pressure. Think about high water pressure and low water pressure. High water pressure, that water's just moving really fast. And low water pressure, it's just kind of trickling. Okay, just have that in your head for a minute. Hypertension is a fancy word that means high blood pressure. Hypertension is defined by only the bottom number. If the bottom number is ever above 90, then they're going to say you got hypertension. An example would be like 140 over 105. You got hypertension. Hypotension is low blood pressure. It's defined by only the top number. If the top number is below 110, let's say you got low blood pressure. So an example would be like 105 over 75. Okay, back to what I was saying about normal. I don't like normal. Bella and Ben, you're kind of both, not ginormous in stature. And because we're a size of like this, your heart is probably about like right here. So you don't need that high of a blood pressure to push the blood up to the top of your head. So that's why I don't like normal. It's probably just fine for both of you to have hypotension, have a blood pressure lower than 110. So for you guys, it might be all right for you to be 105 over 70. And you got enough pressure in your blood to move it all throughout your body. But if you're like 6'2", that low blood pressure won't be able to go all the way up to the top. So you would need a higher blood pressure. You kind of get where I'm going? So these are just numbers. And then what you got to think about is your body size. What we've been doing in class is we've been taking our blood pressure for 4 days. And what we see is that's just a snapshot in time. That your blood pressure is like always changing based on your stress level. The more stressed out you are, the narrower your arteries are. And that means your blood speeds faster. The thicker your blood is. So if you don't drink enough water, your blood's going to be really thick, and that's going to put pressure on the artery walls and increase your blood pressure. The more salt that you have in your diet. Salt pulls water out of your blood and makes it thicker. All right. Next, we talked about this, a heart attack. A heart attack is caused by coronary heart disease. And what this is the blocking of the coronary arteries. Coronary arteries are small. They're only 3 millimeters big. And then I kept saying this. Your heart is a muscle, it's not a sponge. Your heart, it's a muscle, but it's not a sponge. This muscle right here, this pumps blood. Blood goes in the atrium over to the ventricle, and the ventricle shoots it out. It's a muscle, but it's not a sponge. As the blood's going through the heart, it does not absorb blood. But the heart is a muscle, and it needs blood. It needs oxygen and sugar from the blood. So coming out of the main artery of the heart, called the aorta, are these tiny arteries called coronary arteries. And what they do is they bring blood back to the heart. Heart attack, coronary heart disease, is caused by these tiny arteries getting clogged. We wrote down our notes. The next it says cholesterol. There's two types of cholesterol, LDL cholesterol and HDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol, it's a bad type of cholesterol. It's bad. And the reason why it's bad is if there's ever a nick or a rust spot or a tear in an artery, it sticks to it. So if you have a rust spot, a tear, or a nick, it's going to stick to it. And LDL cholesterol can stick to LDL cholesterol. So you see what's starting to happen. It's happening inside of you. Since you're only 17, it's not a problem. It's happening inside of me. And since I'm 54, it's been happening for 54 years. And it's building up in my arteries. I'm hoping I got another 30 years left. But what could eventually happen is that it gets blocked. Now, all of a sudden, these heart muscle cells down here are not going to get any oxygen. It's a muscle. It needs oxygen. Well, except it can work without oxygen. Remember we learned this? By doing anaerobic respiration. And you can do anaerobic respiration for 30 to 40 seconds. And a byproduct of anaerobic respiration is lactic acid. So the heart muscle cells down here are not going to get any oxygen. So it's going to start doing anaerobic respiration. It's going to start making lactic acid. And this brings us to our first symptom of a heart attack. You get a burning sensation on the heart. Dang it, I'm having a heart attack. It'll keep on working for 30 to 40 seconds, and then it's going to stop working. So, what we wrote down in our notes is there's two types of cholesterol, LDL cholesterol and HDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is the bad type of cholesterol. You get LDL cholesterol from eating saturated fats. That's fat that's solid at room temperature. That's like butter. It's like the fat that's on a steak. HDL cholesterol is good cholesterol. You get this from like olive oil. And you make it. Our liver has an enzyme that it can convert the bad cholesterol into good cholesterol, but it takes a little bit of time for this to do it. So you eat the butter, for some time, it's going to stay LDL cholesterol, and it may stick to arteries. But then, as long as we have this enzyme, we can convert it to HDL cholesterol. I think the rest of the notes that we did in class, we talked a lot about a heart attack and how to do balloon angioplasty and bypass surgery. I think we summed this up our last class when you're back in our class on Monday. So I'm going to end this video. If you ever have any questions, make sure you reach out for me. Thanks.